Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how you can light up and render in Blender's real-time render engine EEVEE. As you can see, I have some kind of a sample setup right here. So as you can see, it's in EEVEE, and whenever I change anything, it will update in real time. So I'm going to show you how you can, approach this render engine. As you can see, I have already finished this file, and as you can see, all of the settings has been adjusted accordingly for the specific scene. So I'm going to show you how each and every setting of EEVEE will affect your scene that you are working on, or the scene that I'm working on. I hope this will be a good learning curve when it comes to approaching EEVEE. If you will, please don't forget to like and subscribe so that I can keep making videos like this in the future. When we start setting up the scene, as you can see, I have some kind of background or a backplate, and I have some kind of cylinders. As you can see, this is just a very simple scene that you can do it yourself. And I have a camera with a focal length of 140 millimeters. Actually, this is a scene that I duplicated from this image that I got from Unsplash, which is a really good site if you want a free image that you can use for your projects or for anything. So first, let's go to the render view. As you can see, when you go to the render view, this is the thing that we can see, and there's some kind of environment like that's coming from everywhere. As you can see, it's not too dark. So the reason for that is, if you go to the world setting, as you can see, I have some kind of environment lighting with a color of dark gray and with the strength of 1. So if I, for example, change this one, as you can see, and the whole scene is light up according to the color that you are using right here. So if I make it red, as you can see, we have some kind of red pigment all over the place. So what we have to do is we have to change the strength to 0 right here. Since EEVEE is real-time render engine, it does not interact well with environment lighting. So we have to make the strength to 0. So that's the first step that you have to do. Don't forget to make this one 0. So after this, what you have to do is go to the render setting and let me go to the solid view. We have to add some light. Since everything is dark, as you can see, everything is dark, we have to add some kind of lights. So as you can see, I have added some lights. And this light from the right is the main light source of the scene with a power of 35. And I have used the shape of a disc. As you can see, there are different kinds of shapes. I have used a disc for this scene. And also I have another light source that's coming from the left with a power of 10. As you can see, this one is 35 and this one is 10. And also I have another point light that's complementing this one with a power of 10. And lastly, to illuminate the scene more, I have used an overlaid light, as you can see, with a power of 3. So this is the light types that I have used. So if you go to the render settings, as you can see, we have different kinds of render setting, and we're going to see how each and every setting will affect this specific scene. But before that, I want to go to the color management, and I want to change this one to filmic, and I want to change the look to base contrast. As you can see, let me show you the difference between, as you can see, the light. Let me make this one to a none as it was before. As you can see, whenever there is a bright spot or whenever is the dark spot, as you can see, the lighting is not behaving correctly. As you can see, we have some kind of problems right here. But if I change this one to filmic and make this one to base contrast, as you can see, we don't have that overly exposed place in your scene or spot in your scene. So that's the main function of using filmic color management. So after this, the first setting that we have to see is ambient occlusion. So when I activate ambient occlusion, we don't see anything, right? So the reason for that is the scene is already light up. That's why. So in order to see how this ambient occlusion affects the scene, what we have to do is, let us first hide the lights that you see. I'm going to hide this one, and I'm going to go to the world setting. Let me give this one to 1 for now. And if I go to the render setting, as you can see, we now can see the ambient occlusion. So if I deactivate this one, as you can see, we don't see anything. But if I activate this one, whenever there is a close contact between two objects, the ambient occlusion is visible. So there are different settings for the ambient occlusion. The first one is the distance. As you can see, whenever you increase the distance, the amount of ambient occlusion applied will increase. As you can see, if you decrease the distance, it will decrease accordingly. And the second one is the factor. As you can see, if you change the factor to 0, the ambient occlusion will be 0. And if you make the factor to 1, it will be 100% applied. And trace precision, it does not have that much effect, but as you can see, it will make it a little bit more darker. As you can see right here, if you focus right here, if I make that trace precision 1 and 0, you can see the difference, but it does not have that much difference. So I'm going to make it as the default. So for this specific scene, as you can see, bend normals does not have that much effect. We have some kind of effect, but it does not have that much effect. So if I just make this closer, as you can see, when I deactivate this one, it will become lighter, and if I activate it, it will give us a little bit more dark spot right here. So the next one is, if I, as you can see, if I deactivate this bounce approximation, the ambient occlusion, it won't be that much accurate. But based on the scene that you are working with, you can deactivate this one and you can get more of, shadows in your scene. So the next one is bloom. In order to see bloom, what you have to do is I'm going to press Alt H in order to unhide every light, and I'm going to go to the world setting. I'm going to deactivate this one since we're not going to need this one. So when I activate bloom, as you can see, we have some kind of bloom that's happening around the light source. As you can see the change. So if I drag down the setting, as you can see, we have some kind of settings. The first one is the threshold. So let's say, for example, if I decrease the threshold, as you can see, the amount of bloom that's applied around the light source will be, as you can see, will be intense. So if you increase this threshold, what will happen is you'll only get a bloom in your scene where there is high amount of light source or high amount of emission in your scene. So make sure that you use the proper value. For this case, I think 0.5 will be good, or 0.8, the default value will be good. So the second one is knee. As you can see, if it kind of plays the same role as the threshold. As you can see, when I make it maximum to 1, we can see some kind of bloom right here. And if I make this one to the default value, it's 0.5. It's now the bloom has been decreased, or the bloom is a little bit less. And the third one is the radius. As the name speaks for itself, it's the radius of the bloom that will be applied all over the place. So if I decrease the radius, as you can see, the radius of the bloom will decrease, and if I increase it, the radius will also increase. So the next one is the color. As the name speaks for itself, if I change the color, as you can see, we can change the bloom's color. It's pretty much easy. And the third one, I mean the fuse one, is the intensity. So if I decrease the intensity, as you can see, we will no longer see the bloom. If I increase the intensity, we can see the bloom much stronger. And the third one is clamp. I don't know what this will do, but I don't see any change that's happening when I'm changing this one. So I think this setting will be good. So the next setting that we're going to see is we're not going to use this depth of field and subsurface scattering for this specific scene. We're going to go to the screen space reflection. So if I activate this one, in order to see the effect, what we are going to do is, let me, for example, be right here. If I deactivate this one, we don't see any kind of reflection. And when I activate this one, as you can see, we see the reflection of this one on screen space. So for example, let me select this one and let me decrease the roughness right here so that we can see, the effects. So if I deactivate this one, we don't see any kind of reflection that's happening in our scene. But if I activate this one, as you can see, we have some kind of reflection right here. So that's the function of this screen space reflection. This is just this is not accurate, it's fake, since EEVEE is a real-time render engine, but this will do the job for now. And the next one is the refraction. So if you have any kind of glass in your scene, this will give you some kind of refraction effect in your scene that's happening in real time. So the next setting is this half ray stress. So the function of this one is, if you hover around your mouse, it will tell you the description. So when you activate it, it will ray trace at low resolution, which means you will get faster renderings. And the next one is this trace precision. So if I, for example, make this one to 1, as you can see the change of this. If you focus right around here, you can see how much this trace precision affects the scene. So that's the function of this one. And the roughness, as you can see, I don't think it changed that much. I don't think this one have that much effect. Maybe for this specific scene, I don't know, but I don't think this one have that much effect. So as you can see, if I increase this edge fading, as you can see, we can see this edge clearly right now. But if I increase this one, as you can see, we don't see the edge that much clearly. We can see the reflection, but the edge is not that much visible. So depending on your scene, you can imitate the result or the look that you are going for. So I think clamp, I don't see how much this will affect, but just leave this one as it is. So the next one is motion blur. Motion blur will be good if you are rendering an animation. It will give you some kind of motion blur in your scene, which will imitate realistic feeling. We're not going to use this one since we're not going to render an animation. And the next one is volumetrics. We're not going to use any kind of volumetrics, so we're going to leave this one. So the next most important setting that we are going to see is the shadow. As you can see, we have some kind of properties right here. So let us see how much this cube map size affect our scene. So if I just get closer right here, let us first decrease this one to the lowest value possible, 64. As you can see, when I make it 64, we have some kind of shadows, but almost every shadow is gone. So if I change this one to 128, As you can see, more shadow is being applied, but it's not that much accurate. If I make this one 256, 256, as you can see, we have some kind of change. Let me change this one to 512, 1024, 2048, and 4096. As you can see, whenever I change the cube map resolution or the cube map size, we will get a really good quality of shadows. So that's the function of this one. So I think this cascade size, I don't think it will have that much effect, so I'm going to leave it as the default value. So the next one is this soft shadows. As you can see, when I activate this one, we will get some kind of soft shadows, but if I deactivate this one, the shadows will be hard. I don't think this is the accurate version of any kind of shadow, so I'm going to activate this one. So the next setting is this light threshold. So if I increase this light threshold, as you can see, the amount of light that's applied in the scene will decrease. So that's the function of this light threshold. If I decrease it to 0, the light will be applied to its full intensity, or to its full potential. So that's the function of this light threshold, but I leave it as 0.01, which is the default value. So you don't have to change the setting to anything. If you leave it as it is, it will give you a good result, but you can change it depending on the result that you are going for. So the next setting is this hybrid depth. So if I deactivate this one or activate it, we don't see any kind of change, but this might have an effect in different scenes. So you can just activate it, or you can just deactivate it, and you can see the effect that this will give you, and you can choose whichever that you want. So that's the function of this shadows. And the next one is this indirect lighting. We're going to see the setting later. And the next one is simplicity. As you can see, it will simplify the number of subdivisions that you are going to use, or that you have used. Since we did not use any subdivision, we're not going to use the shading. So for this lighting and rendering part, I think the setting that we are going to focus are pretty much these ones. So before going to indirect lighting, there is one last setting that we need to correct. That is, if you just select one of the lights, you can see the properties of this light right here. In the shadow bar, we have some kind of option called contact shadow. So if I just make this one to closer right here, in order to see the effect of this contact shadow. So when I activate it, as you can see, I will get another extra shadow between two contacting objects. And I have some kind of settings right here. As you can see, we have the distance. So if I increase the distance, it does not have that much effect for this specific scene. But for the thickness, if I change this one right here, as you can see, we will have a really thick contact shadow, which is not that much accurate. So the ideal value that I use mostly for contact shadow is 0.03. So just make sure that you have given all of this light the same setting. Just activate it and give it the thickness of 0.03, and also the point light, activate contact shadows and give it a value of 0.03, and this one, give it a value of 0.03. So that's the last setting that we need to adjust before going to indirect lighting. So in order to calculate indirect lighting and any other reflections, we are going to need light probes. So if you press Shift A in the light port, you will see three kinds of parameters right here. The first one is irradiance volume, or the third one. So this will calculate the indirect lighting. So I'm going to place it right here, and I'm going to press SZ and just place it in a proper place. And also next, I'm going to press Shift A and I'm going to add a reflection cube map. This will help us to get much more accurate reflections, and I'm going to leave it as it is. And also later, I'm going to press Shift A and I'm going to place reflection plane. So if I go to this properties of this reflection plane in the viewport display, if you activate the show preview plane, we will see something. So what I'm going to do is press GZ and move it upward. So we will see some kind of glass material, as you can see. So just press GZ and place it just a little bit above the plane. This will be useful in order to capture the reflection. So go to the camera view. I think it's placed in the proper place according to the camera. So that's what we need. But let me adjust it and place it some kind of in the middle. So as you can see, this is the setting. I mean, this is the setting that we're going to use. We have some kind of light probes. If you click this one, we can see the resolution of this one, and I'm going to give it an 8 resolution between on the X and on the Y axis, so that I will get much more accurate reflections. I'm just going to scale this one just a little bit right here, and I'm just going to select the light probe also. I'm just going to scale it in the Y axis right here. Just manipulate it so that it will fit the scene. So after you have placed this light probes properly, what we are going to do is go to this render properties, and in the indirect lighting tab, you can see some kind of settings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this diffuse bounce to 6 so that we'll have a lot of bounce, which will give us more illuminated scene, or which will give us more global illumination. And I'm going to change this one to 1024, and I'm going to change this one to 64. So that's basically the setting that you have to worry when it comes to indirect lighting. So what I have to do is just go to the solid view and hit bake indirect lighting. So this is the result that I have got. If I deactivate the show overlays in order to see clearly, as you can see, this is the result that we have got. So in the place where there's the irradiance volume, everything is a lot brighter, and we have this illumination, global illumination in brightness. So if I select one of these cubes, cylinders, as you can see, and if I press GY and move it in the y direction, as you can see, in the place where this irradiance volume is not being placed, as you can see, it's darker. And if I just place it back to the place where this irradiance volume is calculated, we can see this global illumination happening in real time. So that's the really good part about EEVEE. We can see things in real time. So if I go to the camera view to see clearly, as you can see, we have our scene that's being illuminated really properly. So the last setting that we need to see is the rendering sampling. As you can see, the shadows, we can see some kind of lines in the shadows. So in order to change that, or in order to really change this effect, what you have to do is in the viewport sampling, if I change this one to 60, for example, as you can see, the lines that were visible, they are now less visible, but we can see some kind of lines. So if I change this one to 128, as you can see, the lines will completely disappear, and we can see this really accurate lighting. So make sure that you have rendered in 128 samples in order to achieve really good result. So guys, this is all for today. I hope this was a really good learning curve when it comes to the real-time render engine EEVEE, and I hope you like this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe so that I can keep making videos like this in the future. And also don't forget to click that bell notification so that you will be notified whenever I release a new video every week. So see you in the next video.